most urgent is some of the grass repair and how we're approaching that. So I think that's something, but the second that I've been asked, and that doesn't need to get done in the next month. We're not going to. To get done pretty quickly, and I just want to make sure that we're.
Which area are you talking about for replacement?
Veranda Park, the whole park needs to be replaced. Long Meadow Park's got issues. North Village has a lot of grass issues in North Village, more than St. Augustine, I think. But
where in Veranda is it? Little square?
Yeah, that's a little square.
Is that an issue of grass not being able to grow there?
Just the grass
type stuff down?
To me, the issue, well, we can get into the meeting, but the issue has been the lack of maintenance, and that's so it's kind of.
Well, it could be a horticultural issue too.
Well, there's a lot of turf distress going on right now that we're working through with CROA or with Davey. Not all of it needs replacement. Some of it can just regular watering and hit it with some nutrients and it'll come back. But there are some areas that will probably need to be replaced.
Yeah.
Like some weed and feed on it stuff though.
I think this, like in Long Meadow, it's basically dirt, so I don't know how you bring that back. So, and the same thing with Veranda Park, if you go through
I'm
Veranda
gonna go
Park.
ahead and stop the conversation for a quick second here.
Okay.
It's now 6 o'clock, it's now 5 o'clock, and we're on. What we can do, Paul, because I don't disagree that those are not serious issues with regard to our turf, but I don't know it's anything that we have to vote on or anything like that. I think we're already working on some specific
Okay,
plans
the issue
correct?
for me is more who pays for it. In my mind, that
Okay.
Davey should be paying for that.
Okay.
They have not been following the requirements of their bid in terms of using a real mower, in terms of maintenance of the grass. I don't think we should have paid for South Village because I think that was a maintenance issue. So to me, that's the urgent issue in terms of, I do not believe the residents should be paying for that. That's an issue that I believe is because of Davey not following the maintenance requirements.
Go ahead.
Are you finished with that particular issue?
Yeah.
Well, can I say one
That's
thing
why
before we do?
I'm
Go ahead.
saying it's urgent.
If you have it on the issue, go ahead, because I have
think
something else.
Some of the turf they just met their life cycle. I mean,
Yeah.
10 to 15 years is a normal expectancy for when you'd have to replace a turf field. So as we go through the reserve study in June, we're going to look at adding that to the study. But I do agree, though, as you're within that life cycle, the scope of the contract should be met. And if anything happens outside of the scope, if it's an insect problem or anything like that, then yeah, that's probably CROA's responsibility. If it's a turf burn because they put the wrong chemicals down, if it's drought because it wasn't recognized that irrigation wasn't working, then that's something that we would hold Davey accountable to.
Wouldn't this be an opportune time of the year to get this turf underway though? You know, it's the planting season. We'd rather
Before we
wait
start
until
the
it gets
growing
really hot in
season,
June.
To put new turf down?
Yeah.
If we have to.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Well, I would say
Any time between now and probably October is a good time.
well, I'm not taking away from who's assigned the cost, but I'm just saying, let's get the job done too first.
I think, right, I agree. That was the two issues I had, how quickly, and I think it needs to be 30 days, just like we have residents. And then the other issue is who pays. The Veranda Park is not an old park. That was redone 5 or 6 years ago. Hippodrome Park is already looking awful. That was done 2 years ago.
And they just
Long Meadow
replaced
Park, I
more
can tell you
turf.
this, Long Meadow Park is not being maintained by the code at all. So to sit there and say that that is a issue of, the life cycle of the grass, that is.
I didn't say that one was. I'm just saying in
Okay.
certain
Some cases
circumstances
there
that
may
they are.
be,
Yeah.
so that's just my feeling is that's why I want to bring it up now because I think it looks so bad that we need to get the grass done
Well,
very
here's-
quickly. And then secondly is that.
Can I make a suggestion? Because I totally agree in what you're saying. Is it possible, because we have our meeting coming up next Wednesday, and that'll be part of the management report anyhow, correct? Is it possible, Paul, that you go ahead and those specific areas that you've seen that you have your concerns about, go ahead and email it directly to them, then that way they have at least until next meeting, to go ahead and address those issues and get an answer to you, and then maybe which ones are related to just life cycle and which ones are related to not proper maintenance.
Well, the
That's a
question is, too, is
horticultural
for the-
question too, though.
Yeah, for the question of the board too, is that if we see that they clearly are not abiding by the contract, and, well, you know, and I'm not a landscaper, but, you know, I do, you know, I do read Google. But if you look at Bermuda, what it clearly says is that it requires more maintenance. It requires a real mower. It requires that you get rid of the shaded areas. And when, you know, a contractor's not doing any of those things, then it's not, to me, Bermuda can last a very long time if it is properly maintained. And this is this is gonna be an ongoing issue about other things as well. Is it a question of maintenance, or is it a question of just life cycle? And to me, this grass issue, when clearly, you know, I don't know how many times I've called to say they're not using a real mower. I mean, if they use a real mower, they use it for 2 weeks and then they stop. So, and I've seen the complete lack of anything beyond just mow, blow, and go out there in Long Meadow Park, when you recognize that Bermuda requires a lot of maintenance. To me, that's, you know, it's clearly, our contractors not upheld the contract, and for that reason, you know, we just can't make excuses for them. We need to go back to them and say, listen, you know, you have not been doing by the contract. This obviously needs to be replaced. You know, this is your responsibility. To me, I mean, the other option is if they don't, to me, I don't want to sit there and spend a lot of money on Bermuda grass and leave it to a company that has a history of not maintaining it well. You know, to me, the option would be fine, you know, we'll replace it, but I cannot see staying with and risking having to spend all this money again to replace this grass, because they haven't shown a history of taking care of that grass in the past. So.
I was also gonna say, I believe Garth is planning to attend the board meeting. He asked if he could, and certainly we want him to. So I think the concerns can also be brought up there, and we'll give him a heads up on the areas that you have concerns about as well. So
Can we submit photos to be
Do
shown
we-
on the slide?
I was gonna say, bring your pictures.
Do we need to look at maybe hiring an independent horticulturist to do some analysis on the soil and stuff like that, to see if there's issues?
It's actually included in the contract. with
Yeah,
Davey.
but it's their
One
horticulturist.
thing CDD
Yeah.
does, which I
Yeah.
think is good, is they bring in a well-known guy, Tom McCubbin, who is well-known in Central Florida.
He's very well-known.
Well-known, and they bring him in once a quarter to review all the trees and landscaping.
If I were gonna
So we
recommend
can
anybody,
kinda
this
piggyback on that.
McCubbin guy is the top of the drawer. You don't get any higher than that.
So let's
And
go.
it might not be that much more as long as he's already here. I mean,
When's he coming for that? When's
he
he
comes
He
once a
did all,
quarter.
he
I
did
think,
all the
my
Golden
understanding.
Oak stuff for us. He's really good.
In an effort to try and get through this, go ahead, if you could, Paul, go ahead and specifically identify those areas
Okay.
you're concerned about and email them onto management.
Mhm.
That way Garth has a heads up as to which ones that we're most concerned about, and then Susan and Steve will have enough time to act upon it too.
Well, I think we're actually concerned about all of the areas that need tending to. This area just happens to be in front of Paul's house and
Well, you-
another one's between Paul and my house, but
Well, I think that when we were doing their drive-along, I know we identified some also.
quite
Yeah,
a few.
North Village
That's
has
what I
areas,
that's what I was alluding to.
Yeah.
And if we're through with that issue, you mentioned that there's different issues going to be talked about at different future workshops that are already set.
Well,
Can
they're
we-
not permanently set, there's something the board can determine, so.
I guess what I'm saying, though, if you've already talked about doing them in certain workshops, can you send them out to the rest of the board so we know?
I think at this point, we got through May
Yeah.
of what is actually scheduled.
Because I had a list of some things that may or not, but are probably not appropriate for this one, but I wanted to see how you actually get them scheduled in as you want to come forward. I know how to schedule anything we want to bring up for a regular meeting. We just get two people to tell you. Two board members tell you, you put it on the agenda. Or Vanessa can put anything as a singular person.
So if there's anything in specific, now, right now, we just discussed, what for workshop for May, we're doing the difficult people.
Right, the presentation for dealing with difficult people, and then we have the bid proposals that will be back for the dog park.
For the dog park?
Construction
Yeah.
of dog park.
Now, should I not come for the difficult people portion?
You're gonna be in the middle.
The example.
They are gonna need,
Yeah, we're not gonna go there.
So I think that I don't want to I wanna make sure, Paul, that you don't think that those issues are not important. I think that there's something that can be actually addressed next month, our next meeting.
Yeah, I would hope that, I mean, these aren't long issues discussed, but it's like something like that, that I would hope that like a week before you send out the agenda, and then we can add something like that. I mean, I don't see why,
Well, I think the
I mean,
agenda comes out on Thursday.
Thursday,
And so
yeah.
and you can have, at that time, if there's
Add
something on
something.
there you wanted to address that's not on
Yeah.
there, just add it.
Yeah.
Just reach out to me or say, hey,
Yeah.
can we add this or whatever, that's
Yeah.
fine.
is that okay? Yeah.
Is that reasonable? Okay. Now that we've already gone off of our agenda, we can
Yeah,
get everybody
really.
back to work. So, any owners' comments? Steve, any owners' comments? Glad you're here. Then we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And let's go ahead and start with the discussion. Susanna, thank you for coming today to help out with this.
Thank you.
When we're addressing this, because we do not want to identify specific properties, we will identify them by numbers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Susanna, I'm going to go ahead and let you go ahead and just head on with the meeting now.
Do we have those?
Oh, go
Real quick,
ahead.
to just kind of lead us off, one of the strategic goal focus areas that were identified during our meeting 2 weeks ago was to ensure community standards are met, and there were 3 objectives underneath that goal focus area. So I know you guys, we've had some conversation, and we felt like this is an important prioritization based on our drive-through. So we put together the 3 objectives underneath that goal area to talk about today, and Susanna's gonna kind of lead the charge here. Any questions or comments or discussion, and we'll be able to help with those. Thanks, Susanna.
Okay,
Okay.
wonderful. So to start off, the first topic was current mediation status of those properties that are in mediation. There are 7 altogether.
Mhm.
So on the first property, number 1, those owners have offered a settlement based on their current CROA foreclosure. So they have settled their mortgage foreclosure and asking to settle on an amount that's a little bit lower than what they owe. But because this house has had non-compliance issues for quite a while, and I know the neighborhood has been very upset with it,
Yeah.
the idea was that, to create a phasing plan based on the items that they need to take care of. So for instance, one of them is painting. So the house shall be painted within, so many months. And then at that time, so much money will be accepted. And the next one, of course, is roof, and there's house cleaning. This property also has issues with their landscape. So they have an
Big time.
overall kind of problem. I know it was cleaned, but they did not do a thorough job. So,
You wanna see it?
the issue is, obviously, people need time to do that, those kind of items, so we give them a staged kind of schedule on to accomplish them, and as they do them, we get closer to agreeing to the settlement offer. If they do not complete all of them, or even some of them, then they don't move to the next stage, and we don't accept the settlement offer.
Susanna,
Does that make sense?
what kind of length of time are we talking about to complete this?
Well, the items are pretty major, but it has sat in non-compliance for so long. I'm personally don't want to give them too much time, but I would say 3 months is
3 months for total completion?
maximum. That's what I'm initially thinking.
3 months would be as far as I would go, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I'd be
been
okay
so
with that,
long.
yeah.
The question I have, how much money less are they
I
offering to
think it's
settle
only
for?
like 3,500,
What's the total amount?
17,000.
Okay.
Okay,
So it might be 25, if they're offering like 14.
And that's only on CROA fees, that's not
Yes.
on,
It's not
any
on
fines.
legal
Okay.
fees.
okay, so let me clarify for me that it's 17 grand is what they owe, 35,000 is what?
3,500.
100.
3,500
I'm
is
sorry,
what?
Is less what they're offering. So I think the 17,000 includes everything as
Right,
far as,
correct, yeah.
the fees, the
Right.
attorneys, all that kind
So-
of stuff, the assessments.
So they'll pay 3,500, but fix the house?
They'll pay 3,500 less.
That's in the 17,000.
Oh,
They're
okay,
offering like
I get you.
four-
So they'll pay off the order by state statute of what
Okay,
is required to pay
okay,
off, and then
okay.
whatever's left.
All right, okay.
How much of that is actually dues?
I don't know, actually.
How,
I can find that out for you, though.
Yeah, if we can get a breakdown of every, on,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah, that'd be
Have they
cool.
fixed everything? that they-
Well,
No.
no, that's what we're talking about, having them do it in the next
No.
30, or next 90 days.
part of my question, I guess, is this has went on since 2007. I think whenever we look at fines, and it may not apply here because the fines still may exceed this, we need to look at how much time and dollars do we spend as far as you going out there, you repeatedly sending them letters, you dealing with them, you know, did you spend 15 hours on this? What is that total time? I don't know what that is.
But the
That-
difference
that's some
here,
of
the
those
difference here is
manufactured.
17 grand versus 13.5.
a lot of those considerations are some we factor in when, if there's an appeal,
Yeah,
okay? Right now, it's a hard number that they're coming up with.
right, exactly.
So if they appeal that number, then we would factor those things in there if we come to a reduced number.
Right.
Is that the same process through mediation, though?
Mediation,
I don't
Would-
know.
There will
not,
be negotiations back and forth on
yeah.
Okay.
that final pay on it.
Did-
But typically mediation, when you go into it thinking that it's a win-win for both, and that's probably half.
Sounds like this isn't.
And this mediation one actually went to the courts. So it was at the point to where they had been served, they were supposed to come to the courts and, you know, make a ruling. And I think at that point, instead of going that route, which can lead to your house being taken away, can lead to jail time, I think at that point, they went and got their affairs in order, took care of the mortgage foreclosure, are trying to take care of, you know, our
Covenants issue,
foreclosure.
yeah.
But in order for us to let them do that, we want the house to look good. Because it's,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly,
right.
yeah.
so if they're willing to do that and do it quickly, that's probably a quicker method than going back through mediation in the court system.
Okay,
So,
and their offer is,
I believe it's 14,000 out of 17,000.
okay,
Rougher, give or take some,
more or less.
yeah, Mr. Jones.
Yeah,
So-
that's good.
When do we accept this plan, or how is this done?
Well, I'm going to come up with a plan, a phasing plan, and it'll be in the board packet for your meeting Wednesday to approve. And if you approve it, then it'll be sent to them.
And you think they'll do it? They'll-
Honestly, I don't know. They don't have a great history
Not a
of
great history,
responding. This is actually the first assertive correspondence we received from them in years as
Yeah.
far as willing, you know, and they haven't offered to take care of the house, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's, they just want to get out of foreclosure, but, you know,
So I
they're gonna
guess,
have to work for it.
and this is me just, I guess, being uneducated on the process, but, I mean, this is, as folks mentioned, has been going on since 2007. I'm just looking at the history back that in 2012 was when we had a statutory offer for mediation, so when we started going down this road. When do we take the house?
This is bank foreclosure too, isn't it?
They just paid the
They
bank.
just paid off their bank
Oh.
foreclosure.
I mean, because we've received multiple complaints from different people about it. It's looking, I guess I just get frustrated that we keep kind of going back and forth on this, and we haven't taken some sort of firm action to get it resolved. And I don't know if it's that we don't have any firm action to take, like we can't take something, or that we just haven't gotten to that step yet.
Well, this mediation took a long time. A lot of it was because the homeowners couldn't be located for many years. And I know CROA at some point approved a private investigator had to go and find them. And then, you know, it has progressed, it made it to the court system, which it's hard to get to that point, you know, it took a
Did
long
they show
time
up
to
at
get
the
to
court
there.
case?
As far as I know, what happened is, they responded, basically saying that they needed more time to look at it, and of course, the court grants like 30 days. I could get the specifics as far as all that goes. But at that point, they decided to go ahead and remedy all the financial issues instead. And that's when they came to us and said, okay, we're ready to pay it off. Again, they haven't offered to take care of the property.
So when do we dig our heels in and say enough's enough, no more 14,000 chances?
Yeah, exactly, yeah, I think it's kind of what Eric is saying.
So on the 19th of January, it stated that the defendant has 30 days to file an answer pursuant to the order entered by judge. So since we're beyond 30 days from that point, and that's the last, that was from the February meeting, have we heard anything beyond that, or that's what we gotta find out?
I can find out for you.
Okay.
I believe that's in relationship to the mortgage foreclosure. And I believe that we just said that the mortgage foreclosure was resolved.
Gotcha.
And so
Okay.
now they're coming to us and saying, will you accept $3,500 less than what we owe you for CROA?
Mhm.
And we decide yes or no. And based on that yes or no, if the answer is no, then, I mean, we can move to foreclose, but I'm not sure what a judge would say when it comes up, when they've offered to pay us some money. So we have to consider that, and I think Susanna's suggestion that we require them to phase in the repairs that we need is a great way to maybe assure that it all happens.
It all happens, right,
I-
exactly, yeah.
I'm not sure whether phase in is the right word. I think, I don't have a problem waiving, say, 3,500 of the fine, conditional upon, so they pay us the 14,000 or 13,500 or whatever right up front. We still haven't waived the rest of the fine. And they have 30 days, 45 days, what you come up with them to repair the rest of the house. If not, the rest of it is not waived. So we hold the stick over their head.
Typically, the best practices are that we don't waive anything until everything's complete, so.
Well, that's
Right.
pretty much what I just said, I
Right.
thought.
It's gotta be done before we can consider anything.
So I think, and Suzanne, what you're saying is that this is kind of our best shot at us getting the property maintained. Because at the end of the day, that's what I'm worried about, is the property being maintained, and figuring that part out. As much as it pains me to say it, getting reimbursed for some of the work that we've already done on it is almost secondary to that, just getting the house back in order. So I think that if that's the best course of action, then we take a look at the phase plan, and I assume that would be something that would be voted on at the next
At a
board
regular
meeting.
meeting, okay.
Okay.
Well, and then we can move that time frame up if you think, and then if it doesn't happen, then, like you said, you don't release it, we foreclose,
I just wish
or
there
it
was some kind
stays
of
in the court
confidence,
system. Pardon me?
that there's some kind of confidence level that they're gonna continue to maintain the home.
Well-
Yeah, actually, they're not mowing now, so we send a 14-day letter out to them that if you don't start mowing, we're gonna be mowing and charging you. So honestly, I can't say the confidence level's high that they're gonna do it, but they're obviously at this point desperate to keep the house because they've all of a sudden come up with a bunch of money and made all these offers to try to, keep the house. So
Maybe
sometimes
down-
when
Keeping it
people
and
feel
maintaining it are
desperate-
two different things.
Maybe
Yeah.
down the road, what we do is say, we'll forgive that level they asked for, but put the other part as an escrow or something like that. So after 6 months, if you've shown you're gonna maintain it, then we'll give it back to you. I just want something over their head to make them.
That's a good condition.
Let's see what comes up with what the plan comes up with.
I guess my one concern, something to think about, is if indeed we do accept the offer and we're back here again, then,
Yeah,
then we,
3 months from now.
then we lose everything.
We have to have a solid
all
plan
over
B.
again.
exactly, yeah.
Well, it's been put on hold in mediation with the court system because of this, but I don't know that that means you can't come back in there and pick it back up, because they still haven't met the obligations that were put forth, in the mediation, so.
Is there,
Well, let's plan.
is there any risk to us, and I know we're not doing that tonight, but is there any risk to us waiving CROA fees, setting a precedent for the future? Because I know that we've kind of always had a hard line about that.
Fines are one thing we can waive.
Yeah.
but
Fines are
and-
one thing, but
not
Fines and
homeowners.
interest,
But
but
interest-
not
hard
assessments.
costs.
I don't think you never waive fees under law.
Oh, I agree, but I guess that's where Jack's breakdown will come in, so we'll see that part.
Bankruptcy.
Yep.
Because I would be very uncomfortable with waiving that portion of it.
We'll
Yeah.
get that, include that for the meeting.
Yeah,
That'd
that'd be
great.
cool.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, want to move to item 2? This property has been in mediation since 2014. It actually didn't have a full launch because, you know, the offer was sent out and the owner contacted us, basically, you know, very upset and wanted to take care of some of the issues. The items are about 80% complete at this time. There's been a big improvement on this property, but there's still items, the roof still hasn't been cleaned. And then I know one of the items on the mediation list was painting the garage light. That hasn't been done. But overall, and there's some other things like trimming the shrubs. You know, the shutters were taken off to paint. The house was painted, which is a big expense. The fence was repaired. The yard was taken care of. But when the shutters weren't, when they were put back on, they were put back on correctly. I have communicated to this owner. Haven't received any kind of feedback as far as, you know, taking care of those small items. So that will be, you know, up to the board's decision on whether you want to move forward with the mediation. There's already fines on this account too, so.
So it sounds like this person has made a good faith effort to fix their house up.
Yeah, at least as whatever they can afford to as they move down the road, yeah, with it, so.
This
So
started
I-
in 2014,
I'd like to check
but they've
that.
been in contact.
They did in the last 6 months, and they submitted applications and took care of a lot of the
A lot of the stuff.
items. I know they were doing it
Sorry, Debbie.
in-house with the family, so there were some financial issues there.
So I think the contact goes a long way, and,
Yeah, until it doesn't, until it
Until-
stops,
well,
and then
Yeah.
you kind
hear
of,
everything's
you
going on.
know.
that or until they say they'll do one thing next month and it doesn't get
Yeah.
done. They say they'll do one thing next month and it doesn't get done.
It's
Well-
always frustrating because sometimes when you get so close, you're like, you're almost there, we're almost done, but yeah.
Is there
you know,
some kind
there's
of a
still-
provision that we can have a mediator put in there, though, that says you have to finish these projects in order to fulfill your
Well,
obligation?
again, this didn't get a full launch because this owner reached out before it did. In fact, this mediation offer expires in a couple weeks, few weeks. So that'll be presented to you on whether you want
But
to
this is their-
continue to
Oh,
pay
so
the attorney
there is
to
no
move
active
forward.
mediation as yet?
Well-
No,
Oh, okay,
the
okay.
offer was sent out and then
Okay.
it kind of stalled
Okay,
there.
I get you.
Can you back up and tell me the process there just a little bit then? So it went to mediation, so we pay half the mediation, they pay half the mediation.
Well, what happens is the attorney, we alert the attorney after it gets approved, that we want to begin mediation on a property. They send out the offer, so it gets served to the owner, saying, here's, you know, basically, the items that you need to complete for your property, and then, they're supposed to respond. And instead of going that direction with the attorney, the owner reached out to us personally
Right.
and said, I'll do things,
Yeah,
I'll
so
do
it never went
things.
to mediation.
So it
Let me
never went
start
to-
doing
yeah.
things,
Right,
and then they
exactly,
did,
yeah.
they started submitting applications, but now, of course, we're like 80% or
Well-
so there, and it's all stopped.
Maybe I'm different from everybody else, but you know, I feel that sometimes, and I'll go take a look at this. Most of the ones that I saw on your list, you know, they were, you know, disgusting. I have no sympathy for anybody who, you know, just doesn't take care of their house. I mean, it just is not, you know, it's not good for your neighbors or anything. So I don't have any sympathy for that, but, I mean, my feeling sometimes is that if somebody does, you know, 80 to 90% of the work, you know, if there are minor items left, is that, you know, I don't, sometimes I feel like maybe if we look at it and say that, you know, right, the appearance to the neighbors, everything, I gotta understand the financial situation that person's in. To me, I would say, you know, kind of walk away from it and say, listen, I'm not gonna, these couple items, you know, I'm not gonna make a big deal out of that. You know, this guy's really done what he can.
Gotcha.
Now, if it's something, so that's me. I mean, I don't know, maybe that, but, you know, I
The only
think.
major item left is the roof cleaning,
Roof cleaning, yeah.
only major item.
Mhm.
I
Well,
guess
but
it
that's a big one.
Or it could
That's
be a
a
big
huge
one,
one.
but it could be one where you say, listen, just please, you know, if you could get that done, and it could be fairly expensive in the next 6 months, we're done, you know, and it's like, I trust you, and then you come back 6 months later, you haven't done it, you go to them and say, come on, you promised to do this. Just again, I think that's maybe where, and maybe I'm different from everybody else, but if somebody's not making an effort, I have no sympathy at all, but if somebody's really made that effort, and for the appearance sake for the neighbors, it's really looking good. I feel
Well,
sometimes it's not, you know, especially when you've got, I mean, something like, again, kind of hit me with a sensitive one, the lights on the garage, but it's like, when it's, you know, it is, you know, there are so many places where it's not being enforced, and it is, and there are places where, service areas where it's not being enforced, so it's like, that's one where it's like, you know, we'll let that one go.
Gotcha.
You know, a nasty roof, that's different, but I guess that's
Okay.
just my piece.
Well, we'll put
my
this
point
on
of view
the
that.
agenda for you to decide whether you want to continue with the mediation or not, because that would be a board decision.
I gotta tell you, I've come kind of full circle on nasty roofs, if you wanna call it that way, because one of the builders in our area seem to use less than standard materials, and those materials seem to be deteriorating, which gives us appearance of a roof that's mildewed, and in fact, it's really not. It's discolored throughout the material. So pressure washing doesn't do a bit of good on it. So,
Other than degrading the roof.
yeah, so in certain cases, I'm always saying, look, I don't mind giving them more time, because you're gonna need a new roof anyway. When you do, let's put a proper roof on it.
Okay. I'm not quite sure how to evaluate that with this
I
property.
know, that's hard, but I know that this house is one of those houses.
Oh, you think, okay.
I guarantee it is.
I see, because of the location.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and I don't know if, the backside of their house is probably where the mildew is anyway, and that'd be the tree side, but
When you drove
I
by,
don't know.
Paul, did you notice?
No, I'm saying, no, I wanna drive by
Oh,
it,
you
because,
will, okay.
I haven't
Oh,
driven by
okay.
it, but what I've,
Gotcha.
you know, what I, and,
I mean, I would temper, if the roof is a problem, I may give it a shot, and a little bit of pressure clean one section of the roof to see if it does anything at all. If not, then I may just let the thing drop.
Okay, all right, so, property number 3, this owner, this was a mediation, since 2014, recent bankruptcy, but that was, dismissed, and at this point, I believe, it's under mortgage and CROA foreclosure, so we're waiting on those to kind of pan out. I did meet with this owner, and they did do a few things, actually it was nice. He did mulch, did some cleaning. It still needs a lot of work, but it's, he has made an effort. Property number 4, this is another one, 85% complete. Now, this one has actually gone through the mediation process, so he got served the papers. There was a discussion on, exactly what needed to be done. In this case, this owner is having some medical challenges that I really think has impeded getting a lot of the items done. I've personally spoken with this owner a lot, and I've seen the struggle. But they did do the painting, clean the roof. Right now, did some work on the lawn. Right now, we're talking about like the stem wall. I know that's something that you'll notice, Jack, the stem wall wasn't painted correctly. The yard still needs work with sod and some, defining of beds, minor items. So that's one where you're kind of just almost there, but you're not. And so when you're in mediation, though, you kind of want to close it until you can check off those items legally and say, this has been completed. I'm still working with this owner. I talk to them like probably once a month and kind of say, where are we? What can we do? Where can we go with this? So that's that property.
I think communication's the key there. As long as you're getting,
Yeah.
and you feel that they're doing what they're doing is to the rest of the 15%.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna take a while, but I think maybe
Well,
eventually we'll get there.
If he's got the health issues, I mean, I can understand that,
Yeah. Property number 5, we discussed this one
Oh,
also
boy.
on the.
1, 2, 3,
on the
4
tour.
Celebration Avenue.
What's that?
Since y'all have seen this property, though, we've received a call from the future owner. Apparently, I guess the current owner was trying to go through a short sale. Now, I haven't seen the closing go through, but we did get contact from supposedly the new owner, and maybe that's who was doing the chimney work at the time, but they've expressed wanting applications to take care of the house, et cetera, so we're real hopeful that this one's gonna turn around soon.
They had guys working on it. When the day I drove by, there was guys working on it.
Because today I went by and nobody was
Well,
working.
the day we all drove by there.
Yeah.
We did
But I've
have
seen
to-
other guys over there too, though.
We did have to pick up a lot of house garbage that was left in the alleyway in their drive port there. And we picked that up and removed it from the house. There was some construction waste out there also.
Again, I haven't seen it close, but someone did contact us saying they're the new owner, they're going to be the new owner, and they picked
Oh.
up applications.
Cool.
Because they wanted to do work on the property, so.
If the property had been sold, wouldn't we have been contacted in regards to the estoppel?
You would have
Yes.
been. Yeah, you would have been.
Okay.
I did the
Probably
resale
still
inspection. Yeah, it could be negotiations. I did do a resale inspection, so I know that it went that far to the title company, but I haven't actually seen a new sale date.
So when the estoppel does show, we'll make sure we get all of these infractions on that estoppel, I'm assuming.
I did put them all on the resale inspection, for
Okay,
sure.
okay.
That was definitely on. Number 6, we talked about this on the bus tour as well, condominium association. I am in current discussion with the manager, and I discussed coming up, I had previously created an inspection for the landscape. Landscape and satellite are kind of the last 2 issues. You'd seen the report. I did meet with the manager, and I said that on our part that I would help to kind of go through the different items and say which ones needed an application, which ones could just be taken care of immediately. Also, we discussed some of the items that in the attorney letter had said we won't be doing these items, but when I spoke to this individual person, she said, I agree with you, you know. The only contention with this one is that they were unwilling to give a specific date when the items would be completed, and that was very firm about that. So my thought was I would go ahead and take the items that I had already sent them, and I would break it up into a phase plan as far as, you know, perhaps over a month to 3 months based on different parts of the property, and schedule re-inspections to look at those items, see if they're completed, check them off as we go so that we can actually say this building's done, this building's done, this building's done, and hopefully they accept that.
I happened to be walking by today, they were actually replacing some of the banisters to go up and down the stairs, so.
Yeah, there's remodeling
They were
going
doing
on.
this week.
Yeah.
Have we tried with, like, so they don't want, we sometimes go to them and say, listen, you know, would you come up with a plan? Let us know your plan to get all this stuff done, and let them come up with one, and then you review it, and it's, so they don't want to come up with a, they don't want to come up with a plan
Well,
themselves.
to
They
be
just say,
honest, in the original mediation, it required them to come up with a plan
Yeah.
for landscape,
Yeah.
but it was never submitted,
Right.
and they acknowledged that. So
Yeah.
what I did is in December, I went through and did kind of one form, basically. And so, granted, I know I'm doing a lot of the work here, but that's sometimes what it takes to get it done in the end. So what I thought now is we'll take it and we'll break it up into some kind of time sequence that we can both kind of discuss and have a checklist to go back through. And then at the end, if there's some items that we just cannot agree on, you know, or they're just willing to do, then we'll have to relook at the whole, you know, mediation.
So
Okay.
with Georgetown, they're clearly, sorry, they're clear, well, it's pretty obvious now. They have a board, correct?
Yes.
Is it the board that has the issue with fixing it? Or is it their management company advising them differently?
Oh,
Or
you
is
know, I
or is it
couldn't
that
say
they-
what kind of correspondence they have with each other. When I have discussions, it seems like a little bit of both, maybe, you know.
But aren't
I
you
don't-
going into discussions with their manager saying, here's what we would recommend to our board? What are you recommending to your board, and where can we kind of meet so that we can both feel comfortable about what we're taking back to our boards?
Well, to be honest, the last meeting, I went into it, and I wasn't expecting this, but it was a very contentious meeting because the manager felt I was pushing litigation. And so it was a very, it wasn't quite the meeting I thought, so there was a lot of trying to just smooth things over and kind of, you know, redirect the conversation towards, you know, we're gonna work on this, we can work on this, let's go over these items that in this letter says you're not going to address, you're just absolutely not. And then the discussion was, that's not true, we will work on that, we agree with you, we agree with you, we agree with you. So that's where we came back to that, and I said, okay, I understand where you are, and then the response was, but there's no timeline for this, you can't, we're not saying we'll do it within such amount of time. absolutely not.
Which is contrary to what mediation says.
Yes,
Yeah, that's-
exactly. So,
yeah,
but at
that's
this
not
point,
acceptable.
there has been an extension, so, they have, the manager did agree to the items though after the discussion, so now it's a matter of when it's gonna be done. So that's why I feel like if I take the extra time and I go through and I try to create a schedule and I present that to them and it's reasonable, then they either accept that, which is a good kind of compromise, or they don't. And at that point, you can reasonably decide, okay, we've tried everything we can, or,
Are you still shooting then for the September 1, like you talked about earlier?
I am, but the feeling I got was that, some of the items weren't going to be done by that period, so.
So we sent them a letter on February 13th, granting them an extension until March 1st to submit applications
Yes,
and June 1st to install the plants.
yes.
Where are you getting that from, Eric? Is that from
The old
Previous
board packet.
Previous board meeting.
previous board meetings?
Um,
Okay.
So with,
It was, pardon me, it was also in the history that I gave you when I sent you, the new information on it. I emailed that about a few weeks ago.
I didn't see that.
It was a bunch of information, I'm sure by the time you got to page 3, you were asleep.
I
But,
printed- Sent out when? Today?
Weeks ago.
No, it was weeks ago,
yeah.
Okay.
but I'll I can.
Oh, that's okay. I'll look back through.
I can
I
resend it and highlight that.
might have slept through it.
That's
No.
okay.
And Leonard, it goes through all the history of when we started to, all the different items.
so what's that attorney letter? So we sent that to them, but it doesn't have any teeth with it? Is that essentially
Well,
what
the
it is?
communication's always between the attorneys, so,
Okay.
when I propose something to the board and then you approve it, or then I send it to our attorney who puts it in the legal format, who sends it to their attorney,
Gotcha.
who then reviews it with the management and the board, and then they come back and their attorney sends something back. So the attorney letter that came back said, okay,
No dice.
yes,
Yeah.
no on this, yes, no, that kind of stuff. So, that's when I took the letter back and I said, so is this true? I mean, do you really? And the answer was, no, that's not true. We're willing to work on that stuff. We agree with you. The
Okay.
big thing at this point just seemed, it was about 95% of the stuff. At this point, though, it was more about time frame. And I think, honestly, I think a lot of that's because they just don't have the labor. But then the other
Sure.
side of the argument would be, it's been 2.5 years past the due date, so,
Yeah, this is 2011 already, yeah.
To me, this kind of gets in this category of that they've done, okay, we've done 90% of it. My understanding, they've like painted all the buildings. I mean, as I looked at the landscape and we went on the tour, to me, it looked as good as our own landscaping. There
It's
were a
not
couple
saying
things-
much in some areas, though.
Right. But I'm saying that we're at, yeah, I know, but, so we're at that, again, this is that issue where maybe if we got 90% of it, again, to me, it would be like, okay, let's split the last 10%. If you do
Right.
this and this, where you give, they give. And I think, it sounds like, and she said real positive things about you, and I've dealt with her, I've talked to her, because I wanted to reach out to her. And, and I can see, she can get a little bit difficult at times, but, and I think it is coming from, I do think it is coming from her. Now, they're self-managed, so they don't have a management team, and I think it does come from her board, so she is having to deal with that board issue.
sure, definitely.
But for me, again, it's like, I think a nice, sometimes, to me, if they've gone 10% of the way, I'm all for go after them, but if they've gone to 80 or 90%, and we're just looking at that final 20%, and that's when, to me, let's compromise, let's work something out, let's shake hands, and let's walk away from it.
Well,
So-
you're right when it comes to a single-family home and you have that 110%, but in a condominium property, you're talking a lot of buildings. So
Yeah.
when the 3 major items are painting, landscape, and then, say, satellite dishes, it's actually more like 30% and it's across the board. And I will say, I've gotten feedback from residents who want this addressed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I feel,
They said they painted all the building, have they not
Yeah,
painted
yeah,
all?
no,
Oh, they have
definitely.
painted all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
landscaping is the only, landscaping and satellite dishes are the two things
yeah,
that remain.
and the
the
satellite
two
dishes
major
are
things, yeah.
almost there. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
we
We're just
went
talking
through
about
there
it.
and we were struggling to
It's
find
mostly the
satellite dish
landscape,
problems,
and
so.
just because the mediation required something to be submitted, it never got submitted, and there wasn't a lot of progress done. And she would agree with that, but
Mm.
there would also be said that there'd been some challenges trying to find a contractor. They had, bug and, a lot of infestation going on across property wide on the lawn.
Yeah,
So
North Village is a tough.
there
area
has
for-
been
for
challenges.
landscaping.
Suzanne,
So-
when you bring us things like this, again, this has been going on for 5 years. And I'm sure you've spent more than an hour here and there to do this.
Definitely.
I think whenever you get into any kind of a problem property of any sort, whether it's a individual property or a condo association, I think you need to keep track of the hours you spend on that.
Okay,
And I think that will help us make decisions down the road, whether it's for fining or anything else. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, they want to get out of this. And we look at it, it's like, she spent 89 hours working with them already.
right.
So that's just to throw that, not anything else to do with this particular instance.
no.
I'm glad they're moving forward with what they're moving forward with, albeit slow.
Yeah,
If they do finish,
that would be great, right?
you know, if they're meeting the deadlines, even though it may not be your deadlines, I'm not sure if I'm completely against that, if it's a reasonable versus getting back and paying attorneys on both sides and all of a sudden you're 6 months down the road where it could have been done in 6 months down the road.
Sure, well, and I think that that's kind of the compromise between accepting, oh, well, we just don't want a deadline, as opposed to being too restrictive in your mind, would be to set a reasonable time frame with stages, and then let's both check on that progress, you know what I mean? There has to be some kind of end date, or else we'll still be talking about this year after year, you know? So, anyway, I think we're on some progress there, and once I get that phasing plan, I will send it to you for review.
Okay.
I'm good. Okay, the last property is also condominium association. This one has ongoing work progress. I did receive the satellite plan last week. I know they've hired New Leaf, who submitted plans to the board.
For
Their board's reviewing
landscape?
the landscape, and so that's kind of at the end, and they just had 4 buildings left to paint. They were waiting on some structural bids. That's been turned in, so, you know, we're making progress on that
Good,
property.
good, finally with that one, yeah.
Suzanne, I guess the only thing that I would say with that one is some of the landscaping issues that I see with this property are relatively basic in a lot of cases, like mulch. Yeah,
Right.
I drive by it on my way to and from work every day, and I always chuckle when I turn the corner and I look and I say, still no mulch today.
Yeah. Unfortunately, one of the 4 buildings that aren't done is the one on the corner.
Okay.
So when you come around, that's the first thing you see, and you go, oh, how long is this gonna sit like this? And it's because the landscape is obviously done after the painting.
Sure.
Well, the painting's done after they fix the structural issues. So that's
Okay.
kind of where they're at right now. And as soon as that gets done, you know, they have a painter ready, and then,
But you're
you know.
comfortable that work's actually progressing there?
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
Okay.
Moving on to properties to be evaluated for possible mediation in 2016. I had 8 down. I had a longer list, but I kind of went through it with our team and narrowed it down to here. I have not personally gone out to look at these recently, so I would like to do that before I obviously.
I looked at all of them
serious-
today.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Any ones in particular? That,
Item numbers, not.
yeah, numbers, right.
right.
What are you
Uh,
saying?
I'm working through right now. I didn't go according to 1 to 8.
Sure. Well, number 1 doesn't have any fines because there's been a history of kind of in and out of bankruptcy and.
If I start with number 4 for a moment,
Sure. That has a lot
it's
of
got a lot
issues.
of dirt on the roof, it's got a lot of mold,
Yes.
or not mold, a lot of mildew on the front.
Yes.
On the front siding, the, above there.
Yes,
Uh,
and there are $25,000 fines.
It
these
appears it's for
properties to
sale.
reflect that. Yes.
There is a
that-
for sale
that's
sign
what-
up in the
It
yard.
kind of comes up and it goes down, and it kind of comes up and it goes down.
Of course,
And
the big thing is the mailbox needs repainting too.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
But that is,
It
it
does
is,
look bad, though.
it does look pretty bad.
That's actually a case where you're like, that mailbox is trouble.
But that's number 4 that I looked at.
My question is, number 3, is that a typo?
No,
Look-
here's,
Yeah,
look at the
oh,
wrong
I
one.
gave you an
There's an
updated
edited
one.
one.
That was the finger typo, yes.
Oh,
before we jump off of Leonard's number 4,
Oh.
are they, they're,
I typed that wrong.
Do you wanna see number 4? How can,
Called that
no,
wrong.
I got it. This one is, it's a foreclosure, we think?
This is number
4?
Not to my knowledge, they filed bankruptcy, they've done it a few times. I've actually looked at this property because a neighbor calls me very upset every few
Yeah.
months. And, I've even talked
This
to
is
kind
number
of
3
the other
property.
people on the staff, kind of
Yeah,
what's
that might-
going on, and
I assume it's
this
the
owner
roof.
files bankruptcy every so often, and then, so once that happens, you can't send any
It's the roof
covenants
there.
letters,
It's
you
really
can't send
big.
anything, so everything
Yeah, it's
halts,
bad,
and you
yeah.
wait
Okay.
for the
And then right-
bankruptcy to get
this
dismissed.
house is right
It
behind
just
me.
happened again, it
I'm
just
very
got
familiar
dismissed,
with it.
I sent a letter like right away, so,
Okay.
It's a piece of garbage.
I'm
The-
hoping, we'll get somewhere this time.
Number 3 that I went by,
Yes.
the only thing, I mean, the thing that glared with that was they have a tile roof and it was very, very dirty.
Yes.
Do you have other things listed for that particular one that I missed
The
on here?
roof is actually not one of the items they've been fined on, but I have noticed looking at it recently, that it does need addressing. So far for the, finding, the landscape, did you happen to
The
notice?
yard does need some, I mean,
The
Yeah, no, the
landscape has a
landscape-
lot of
landscape
dead
is
plants,
bad.
it's
I
in
saw that one, it
disarray.
looked bad. Yeah, it looks bad.
They were actually, it was fine for awning, landscape, and sidewalk. But I know that if we were to go back around, the roof
Yeah,
would be on the,
that'd be
on
more,
the
yeah,
list. And
yeah.
we're also, CROA's maintaining this property. And I've also received from resident, concerns because the pool's not being maintained. So there's been odors and mosquitoes, and
Oh,
so,
Lord.
the neighbors are upset about this property.
Throw some salt in that pool water and hope, and that'll kill it.
So-
Is that what you do?
Clorox,
Oh,
depending on what they have.
We're talking about number 3, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Number 3. And that fine amount is an incorrect amount?
Yeah,
The big one, yes.
Yeah,
The 896.
that's more than a thousand.
Matters 15.
That was my thing,
It's
was
15?
moving too fast, yes.
So I'm looking at a photo from May of 2011. I would think that that's more than 50% soiled.
Yes.
So have we really been sitting on this property since 2011 for these items? Or,
Well, you know what, I can go look and see as far as why the roof wasn't sided before.
okay.
Talking about number 3?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay, this says 2015 is when the issues
yeah,
began.
he's
so-
looking at 2011.
Issue.
I'm looking at Google Street View and staring at their
I'm just looking
roof.
at when the fines were put on there,
So
but it
that's all I
doesn't mean
did.
the house didn't have issues.
Yeah, okay.
I know that a year ago, they went and took care of, they painted the house and they took care of the landscape, and it looked good for like a while.
Yeah,
And then,
okay.
so, but I will check into why the roof wasn't sided already.
Okay.
All right,
I think we're all familiar with number 5, probably.
Yeah.
Number 6 has been kind of out in the community for a
that's,
while.
yeah, that's a bad one.
Number 7 is relatively new.
Let me ask you, there's that other house on that road, are we maintaining that other one
On the previous list?
no, on Golf
He's
Park?
talking about number 4.
No.
Oh,
No,
I'm sorry.
Number 6.
Number 6, eh?
No, I don't think we're maintaining.
That was the one, I think the one that you're talking about is the one that was just, it was just mowed this weekend. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that, are we
That was-
maintaining,
You mean at a
right across from the golf course,
Right by
across from the
Nate.
golf course?
Right by Nate.
Susanna?
Oh, that one, the one that
Yes.
everyone's been saying is
Yeah,
abandoned?
it's bad,
Yes.
yeah.
That's due to be mowed tomorrow or the next day.
It's been mowed,
It's been
because I
mowed.
just
Oh.
walked by it today, and it's been
Oh.
mowed.
He's going
Okay,
yesterday.
well, we sent a 14-day notice out, and you have to give them 14 days before
Okay.
you go and do it yourself,
Okay, so I was
so.
just wondering if we did. it
And I did not
or they
take
did.
my
No.
weed whacker to this house.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite due yet unless
Okay.
Davy jumped
I have
the
on
gun,
some others.
but,
Okay, well, it has been taken care of.
Okay.
At least the
Most
mowing.
of most
That's
of it.
good. We didn't receive any communication on it, so
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have to assume that they did something at the end. 1010 Banks,
Sorry.
I did it myself.
Number 2?
Number 2, that's been a property of concern for neighbors for many years too.
Yeah.
So,
That's been on our covenants list for a long time.
you're familiar with number 8, and then number 7's a fairly new one, so,
Well, 1 and 2 are just,
very close.
yeah, 2 houses apart.
Why is there a negative under the fines?
Well, I did this
I don't know
for,
if you've seen
this one had $30,000 fines, and then, I don't know if you
Yes.
recall, the appeal came
It's
to
one
the
of the two.
CROA
I'd have to
board,
go
and
in
then
closer
we
to see
waived,
the number,
the
but-
30,000 were
What is
waived,
that?
because
What
we,
is that?
the
Yeah.
thought was the house was selling the next
And
day.
then-
It did
then
not
right up
get
the
sold.
That was that
There.
last minute one by, that
I
that we had.
know.
It's this one.
I know.
You should
Isn't
never
that
do that.
frustrating?
This was the bait, and then this was the switch over here.
And they
it was
did it.
bad.
They
Should
did it.
never do that.
They, you know what, I
Oh,
truly
that
believe
kind
it
of
wasn't
thing, I guess.
intentional,
Mhm.
because they were
Yeah,
contacting
that's bad.
me so much, trying to make
And it's
that
on the
happen.
that's the
and
alley right
for
there,
some
I
reason,
believe.
I don't know, but the good news is that, a current resident of the Celebration has contacted me, and they're buying the house.
Oh,
Okay.
And they
Oh,
wanna
good.
fix it up. They just reached, I have an appointment with them actually
Good.
tomorrow, to go through everything they wanna do,
Good
so,
stuff.
that's the good news
Um,
on
That's a
that.
good thing.
Number 7, though, real quick.
Yes.
So we were receiving ARC applications for them as early as like October of last year. S- Is it just minor things that are stuck with that
For number 7?
for number 7?
From what I have recorded, there,
Oh, yeah,
the
that's west
painting and the
side.
roof
Then you
have
get
not
over
been
there, yeah,
completed.
Okay, so it was approved by ARC. Oh, no, this was covenants. I'm
When I-
sorry, never mind. We cited them, never mind.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
When I looked
Yeah,
at the
so-
right side of that house, it had a lot of greenish, whatever grows green on the sides of the houses,
Yeah.
the,
Mold.
That's an accessory. You pay more for that.
Yeah, you pay,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
the rest of the house actually
Comes
didn't
with
look
the
that
porch
bad. It
option.
was round
Yeah.
as I saw it, but that side really had it badly
Their
looking.
roof looks
If
bad
it's
and their
evenly
painting-
molded, then you're okay. But if it's blotchy
It's kind of
mold,
a color accent then.
Problem.
If it's evenly molded.
even,
Suzanne,
You're so
before we
bad.
move on from this, I just wanted to quickly my one concern that I think you've gotten some multiple directions with regards to level of enforcement. I guess the balance that I would recommend is, we wanna make sure that doesn't go into selective enforcement.
right.
If we say you don't have to paint your light, but you have to paint your light, that goes into selective enforcement. So if we're gonna end up finding anybody, for that with regards to, anybody that's on this list that we're going into foreclosure and they have fines, if they have that particular item on there, it would be considered a selective enforcement. So I guess just for those that are new.
It needs to be on the,
It needs, we have to be careful with dismissing something, because then
Right.
we would be collecting for
yeah,
selective enforcement.
it needs to be on the letter of of covenants violations, saying that you've got this light.
Because even if it's not within the next 30 days, if they can't get it completed, if it's 60, 90 days, even if it comes up next year, it's an item that will come up eventually.
Right.
And they could come back and say, well, it's always been like that, even when I bought the house, it was like that, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
important that it's
that's-
noted on the
At that point, the cat's out of the bag, yeah.
But
So
you're,
you're saying we can't sit there, we're at 80%, we can't sit there and say, just, if you can get those 2 or 3 things done, then or come to some kind of compromise that.
I think as long as it's gonna be done, eventually the
Yeah,
light
and
needs to be
document,
painted.
and
So you're
document.
saying, okay, well,
I mean, does it have to be done in 30 days, or does it have to be done in 60 days? I think you have to
so
have
you
a
could
time.
sit there and say, okay, the light thing, since we are selectively enforcing that anyway, since even in our own areas, we aren't enforcing it. I mean, this whole selective enforcement, there are a ton of things that are subjective, that are being enforced some places and not enforced other places.
And
So
I think that
And
the
it
goal
could
should
be-
be to unify that so
But,
that it's
but,
not.
Well, and
but
it
if a way out, you're saying, would be to say, listen, just, get that done in the next 6 months. And it not be, where you have a, whatever, just, you have an agreement, but that there's not a 6-month follow-up. You will follow up eventually, and if it'll show up, that'll be their new whatever. But in terms of closing something out, you can sit there and say, listen, just in the next, these couple of things, get that done. and
We
we're
can work
great.
with homeowners, but the point is that if you're gonna send a letter out to someone saying, clean, do your light or clean the sidewalk, you have to send it out to everyone else that has to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I
To your
But I'm
point.
saying,
Part of that-
so we're saying to do it, we're just saying, here's a way to sit there, rather than, just to kind of clear it out and say, we're done. So you don't have to keep going back and spending your time, and you can kind of
We
come
go
to
back
some
every
resolution.
12 weeks anyway, through the rotation, correct?
Well, and I think part of that too was, part of this conversation was, if it's a resale or if it's part of the estoppel, you can't just say it's taken care of, because they're
Is it-
transferring ownership of the house.
Exactly.
Because the new owner now will come in and say, it was never listed, it was never an item that we were noticed that needed to be taken care of.
Right.
And they could say, we bought this house like this, and it wasn't on there.
Yeah.
But to your point, Paul, moving on to the covenants process, we did revise the first letter. That should be the next page in your packet.
Yeah, I saw that, I like that. I
Okay,
think that works a lot
so the
better.
fourth paragraph. Please contact us if the items are resolved or your plan of corrective action within 30 days.
So there's only one thing that, to me, is missing from this letter. And you can tell me whether or not it's appropriate with the staff that we have to provide this. If you tell me that my landscape is missing in the front bed of my house at 1126 Mosaic Drive, since I said everyone else's address tonight, I don't know what front right bed would be, whatever it is.
Easy for you.
I'm not necessarily gonna know what that means.
Towards facing the house, or is it coming out of the house?
So
or-
is it possible to include photos with these when I know it's a courtesy notice for
You know,
that,
it
but-
said it in the process for the staff process.
Yes,
that they're
every,
gonna-
Yeah.
the letter includes a picture, at least one
Okay.
picture.
Even this
Now-
initial one.
Now,
Even the
you may
initial
have
letter,
five
that was my
different
question,
items,
yeah.
and the system only allows so many pictures in there, or it becomes too big to email, is what I've
Sure,
found out.
okay.
And we literally like the email, because, homeowners like that. But yeah, we'll attach a picture,
Okay.
or, we try to do front right, to be honest with you, they used to say missing landscape in the front bed.
Front
So
beds,
now we try to
right.
get very specific, front right, or
Yeah.
side, or the rear, or, something like that to
But the
guide you along.
Point of clarification, you do send even pictures out on this initial.
The courtesy
Yes.
notice.
Courtesy
Okay,
notice.
that
Yes,
was
there's a
all
picture.
that was my concern,
All right,
okay.
Susanna, I do have a question.
Okay.
I'm looking at the paper titled Finding Process for Noncompliance Items, and then also Covenants Process. We're going to compare the two of these. If you look on the second page in paragraph 6F,
In which one specifically?
in the finding process for noncompliance items.
6F?
Yeah, it says covenants, finding hearing, this committee may not grant extensions or reductions. And then this process, paragraph 5D,
Seeing a discrepancy here.
last sentence is any additional extensions given by the committee will then be recorded in the meeting minutes. One
Okay.
says you can't, one says you will.
Okay, so to go back towards that, and we can discuss this more in depth for the covenants process.
That's
But
fine,
the
yeah.
idea was that, because I know there'd been some discussion on giving owners a chance, circumstances coming up. So the thought was, if they contact us, like the first letter says, within 30 days with a plan of action, that we, based on the circumstances and the owner's request, can grant up to 90 days extension on that to work
Right.
with them.
Right. I
Um,
don't have
After
a problem with
that-
that. What I have a problem with is when I read this, one says you cannot grant extensions or reductions. The other one says any additional extensions granted must be recorded in the meeting notes. So you need to resolve what you're
Well,
doing.
The point
I
is
don't know
that after that 90 days, then, if you want anything beyond that, you need to go to covenants hearing and get it, and request it through the covenants committee, and then it goes in the meeting minutes.
But then it says the committee may not grant extensions or reductions.
Well, but what happens is, at the meeting, the owner comes and says, okay, I'm having difficulty, I've had, something happened since then, I just can't get the material, or whatever, I don't know, different situations. And the covenants committee says, okay, we're gonna reject the fine, because that's all they can do. Management, please follow up with this homeowner within 30 days.
Yeah.
Then we go out within the 30 days and we follow up, and if it's not done, then you're back again getting fines proposed in the covenants hearing. I mean, you're right, it's kind of contradictory, but
It's all of-
legally
all
you
of-
have to work within the parameters that the law
It
gives
sounds like
you.
we just need to change the verbiage there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
it's a verbiage conflict that I don't have a problem with.
Okay,
I mean, I would give you the ability for covenants to make the extensions. I don't have a problem with that.
No,
but
you
I don't
can't
know if the
by
law
statute, no.
allows us to do
no,
that.
you're right, it's more of a, we're gonna reject the fines in lieu of giving you more time.
Yeah.
Okay.
They
you-
can't say, the minutes can't say the covenants granted 30 more days.
Yeah.
It'll say the covenants committee voted to reject the fines,
Okay.
and
Yeah,
then
they can't
we'll
do
have
that
it.
anyway by statute. They can't reject a fine that the board's already approved.
Yes,
Reject.
well, the board's
No,
No, no, I mean, they
proposing
can't
fines.
reject, I say reject it. They can reject the covenants violation, but they can't say, oh, no, wait a minute, instead of, $50
No, they
for
can't
this,
reduce
it's
the fine.
100.
They can't.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
can't
that's
change
what-
the
yeah,
actual
yeah.
fine amount, you're correct.
I mean,
I think-
I did have a concern about the 3 months, is that, you know, every situation is different. The situation that I had, and was that, for instance, like your roof, so I get, you know, this was years ago, well, not that long ago, yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. So I got a notice, you need to clean your roof. And it was a bad original roof, Jack, I tell you that right. But, no, so I wrote back, and I said, well, I'm getting a new roof put on. And y'all said it was okay, and there wasn't, and you let me do that. But the process took, I mean, to get a new roof on, to go, you know, and we were making, really, we just kind of one minor change. We were putting metal on one section, but then you go through the whole ARC process. You got, you know, one, you got to go out and get bids from all the roofers. You go through the ARC process, is a 3-month process, especially when you're making any kind of changes. You know, I can tell you, well, because it was.
It used to be.
No,
Well,
I
it was
can tell
3
you.
years ago, too.
It
We're
was
more
3 years ago.
approved now.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe it's
yeah,
better now.
it's-
I mean, I
it's a
remember.
big difference, yeah.
I don't want to get into the detail, but there was a lot of give and take, and I remember that, it was like Collis Roofing. I was like, Collis is like, you know, you do half the roofs here in town. He's like,
Yes,
no, this,
I'm familiar with them.
at the time, and maybe it has gotten better over the time, he said, well, this is the hardest process of any place they do in Florida. But so that takes, I mean, you know, you're really getting into, I mean, it's kind of a 6-month process to get a roof
I
replaced.
understand what you're saying.
And there wasn't, I'm not saying that you called and said, wait 3 months, you're fine, but to me, there should be, I mean, every situation is a different situation. If somebody is, some could be a year, I mean, you know, but.
You know, you hit on the key thing is communicate with her,
Right.
because if you talk with her, she's gonna say, let me know when you're gonna get it done.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that the
Exactly.
3 months, and I sort of agree with this, is that 3 months is a guideline that we're going by, but this isn't, and you look at it situation by situation. If it's a new roof, and I know that they're getting, then I know that, you know, it may take them a little bit longer. Now, you know, if I don't see anything going on in 6 months, you know, I'm gonna contact them and say, wait a minute, but, so is that the case? If that's the case, you know, that seems reasonable to me, because every situation is a little bit different.
Well, I would first clarify, just for anyone watching, that,
3.
Is there 3? When you're doing painting or roof replacement and it's the same color, we get you back your approval within 48 hours.
Yeah, mine was a little bit
I'll
different.
actually attest to that, because I had to replace my roof, it was a year ago. It was before I was on the board, so it was like the summer before that. And I literally said, I have to change my roof, I wanna do it now, and I got the letter immediately.
Yeah, well, I had to change,
Yeah.
so I had
Probably
to change, so part of
It was-
it, part of my roof I
Yeah.
did metal, so the main part of the roof, so there was a change in it.
Metals, there was some.
Okay,
in
and maybe,
the
and again,
board
maybe
on
it's
metal
improved, but I
roofs years
still think
ago.
3 months, I mean, to
No,
get
I
between
understand.
bidding and doing all that stuff.
Sure, well.
But as long as, I mean, you know, as long as it's not a hard and true, and you know, that, you know, most things should be within 3 months. You know, there's some
Gotcha.
things where it's gonna take 5 or 6 months.
Well, then
You
I
know?
also wanted to say is, okay, say for instance, in this example, the owner has to submit an application. Once you submit the application, things are stopped. Because we know you have to go through ARC, and you
Okay.
have 2 months to complete it, so there's no clock ticking while
Okay.
you do that.
Yeah.
The time period for you to submit the application, once you submit it, we know you have a plan of
Yes.
action, and that's what we're looking for to begin
Okay,
with.
right.
So, and I think, you know, you have to put at least a timeline on it, because otherwise you have homeowners setting their own time extension, their own deadline, and then, you know, your neighbor down the road says, well, how come you got 6 months? I only got, you know, or you got a year and I got 6 months. Well, I asked for it, but I didn't know I could ask for a year. So then you have that kind of situation coming up where people are like, they feel like we're granting you
Well,
a
it goes
different
back to selective
timeline
enforcement.
based on kind of what you wanted. I think, you know, bottom line, when it comes to hardships, there's no question. You know what I mean? That we work with homeowners when it comes to hardships. I think applications, that application stops the process. You know, up to 90 days is fine.
Yeah.
We'll look at it 90 days. And then if you look at the process, what happens is after 90 days, say we decided, you know, December 1st. December 1st comes when we're kind of back on our rounds around that part of the community. We look, and if you haven't done it, you get a second letter. You still have 30 more days to, you know, to do something about it. And then you get a letter from the board proposing, and then you can come to covenants here and you can say, okay, this is what's going on. And the covenants committee at that point, I think it's important to note that, you know, management can work with you to some point, but in the end, if you need a more extensive timeline, let the covenants committee decide that and have it in the minutes, so that everyone knows on that street, okay,
Yeah.
the association granted an extension for this, and it's in the books.
That's what, yeah, I think as a neighbor, everybody wants to know, are they working
Sure.
on this or
Yeah.
plan, so.
Well,
I
that's a
think the
common
thing-
question.
What I get pushback, what I hear from people is that you have 3 weeks, and it's like this, kind of like, as opposed to, it's like, well, a way where it would not be where it's like, that somebody's telling me, you gotta get this done in X number of days, or else, and not knowing what the or else was. And so we're kind of laying out a little bit more. The or else is not as bad as you might have thought, but the way it was kind of come across before was like, or else, and so everybody's like, I don't know, what is or else? I don't know. I think I'd take my,
Well, we've
my
also
third child
incorporated
away
an
or something.
extra letter in there. You know, it used to be you got your first letter, and then you went to a second letter with a 14-day notice for the covenants committee. Now you have a first courtesy notice, and you have a second courtesy notice, and then you have a board's proposing a fine, and then you have 2 more weeks before you actually go to a hearing. So,
And
you know,
last year,
and the
this was
email.
important from last year's board, that it made it to last year's strategic plan. So we spent a good portion of the year working on finishing up green up cleanup and redefining the overall covenant process. So in kind of in the spirit of encompassing what the intention was from this year's board through strategic planning, we wanted to put this information together for you today, give you a chance to share your thoughts and see if we're moving in the direction that was part of your strategic focus.
In the effort of time, was there any, did anybody, yeah, go ahead.
I had one other, issue that I do have is this, let me see, it's the Celebration Town Hall Administrative Policies for Procedures Management Community Standards Department.
Yes.
And I want to make sure, because I don't know if I misread this or whatever, but, I guess the way I'm sort of reading it is that, to me, there's like, most items, you get an email and you say, please get it fixed. But there are, am I reading this that basically it's like if you have a mailbox that we are sending emails that you have to get that mailbox cleaned in 7 days, or that you have a mulch need in plant beds, are we saying you have 10 days to get that done?
So
or-
what this is, in order to kind of soften the communication and do the more personable outreach to homeowners, we started this policy to where we reach out by email first. So in other words, and we always start off like this: your house looks great, thank you for maintaining your home. We just noticed a couple things. Your mailbox flag's missing. You need to clean the sidewalk. Like that to us in a house is mostly in compliance, but then you have 2 small items. We just rather email you, so that what we do is we say, please note, and then if you could complete those in 7 days. And then if 7 days doesn't work out, or we don't hear from them or anything, then we send a first letter.
Okay.
So it's not a deadline, it's
See,
more
I
of a.
have a problem with that, with a lot.
Okay.
Now, I understand, like, if it's somebody's lawn, like this situation at Golf Park, somebody's lawn, that's bang, that's like whatever. A lot of these items are, relatively minor items, and I've had people who said, they were in like Europe or somewhere, and they got this letter, and they're like, it's like, I got 7 days, I'm not even back home for 2 weeks,
I see.
and I got it, so I think what I would like, personally, I would like to see is like certain things, like there are a few things where it's like, it needs to get immediately done. Like if somebody's parking a motor home in front of their house, that's an immediate, you need to get that done and moved within whatever number of hours. Yeah, and unless it's something that is, really, I guess kind of major and needs to be addressed, right away, to me, that should be within the 30 days. Something like cleaning the sidewalk. Sidewalk should be, that's, because it takes, you gotta call the guy, you gotta find the guy, get the guy over. Sometimes that guy's booked for a week or, and I think I hear what you're saying in terms of people is like, as long as you get it done, it's fine. But people read this and they don't know all this other stuff. All they know is like, man, I'm sitting here in Bangladesh and I got a week to get my sidewalk, and I don't know what's gonna go on if I don't get my sidewalk cleaned.
Well,
So
I think that's really
you
good
know.
feedback, and I think maybe, and I'll check because I thought this was in there, but if you're getting the feedback that it's not, then the line should be in there that if we don't hear back from you within 7 days, we will proceed with the first letter, or homeowners, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the emails. Owners like that we're reaching out to them via email just to say, hey, here's a couple small items.
Yeah, but I mean, something like the sidewalk, it's like, that, to me, 30 days.
Oh,
Please get that done
completely.
within 30 days. So most of these things, I think, should be handled within that letter. There are a
Okay.
few exceptions where it might be, we
Okay.
can't wait 30 days. But to me, most things should be, you know,
Okay.
get it done in 30 days.
So
I mean,
don't send the emails out. You
Well,
per-
Well, no,
your-
send the
Even-
emails, send the-
Not the emails, but just not, it has to be done in 7 days, because if
Right.
we're turning around
You're
and
talking about
saying
the
in a
two, you're
letter,
talking about the two,
let us
you're
know within the next 30
Let me
days.
clarify really
I-
quick, Paul, and then I'll
Okay.
get you a second. Paul, from what I'm hearing, I think, is that your issue is the 2 days, 7 days, 10 days. As far as
Yeah,
turnaround time,
yeah.
that's what I'm hearing,
Yeah.
correct?
I would-
Okay.
What I would look at is just most things fall, just about everything falls in that 30-day. There are a few, what exceptions
I
are
know what
there
you're saying.
that we really need to be addressed more quickly? And I would say, like if the lawn has
Commercial
just got the weed, you
vehicles,
go by and you see the weeds have
lawn.
gone crazy, hey, that needs to be addressed. You know, that's an obvious thing but
I see.
if it's a mailbox not clean, if it's a sidewalk,
So keep the email approach, but don't put the time date on
that's
it.
my feeling.
Yeah.
Well,
To-
Wait a
I would,
second,
I would,
Leonard's been
Leonard
waiting
has-
patiently for a second.
I would assume, number one, that the 2 days and such are business days.
Yes.
And do I understand, the way I can look at this a couple of different ways. And the way I can look at this would be, you would send them an email saying that, you know, you got a pile of trash in your backyard that's this high or whatever, that they left out on their concrete. And you send them the email, and you say, if we do not hear back from you within 2 days, we will be sending you the letter. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes,
So you're not saying you have to have it done in 2 days, you're saying, I want you to contact us back so we know it's going to be done, and then we don't have to send you this letter.
yes, but in your example of trash, I would want it done in 2 days too.
No, I know, but I just pulled that one off of here,
Yes.
and I don't necessarily disagree with any of the,
Yes.
I'm not sure if I
you're-
disagree
you're
with any of the
correct.
timing days here. I wanted to make sure that that's what I had heard,
Yes.
was again, and sometimes I repeat myself twice to make sure that I've heard exactly the same thing, is that the turnaround time is 2 business days. So if I have one of these things that need to be done on my house, you're gonna send me an email out, and you say, if we don't hear from you in the next 7 business days, we will be, you know, this is what's wrong. We appreciate you having it, you know, all the other nice stuff first. This
Right.
is what's wrong.
Right,
If we don't hear back from you with your plan or your,
that it's scheduled
your
or
plan
you've
that
done
it's
it
scheduled, that
or
it's gonna be done
something.
within 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, whatever the amounts are, then we will be sending you the
First
first
letter.
letter for covenant enforcement.
Yes, yes.
Now, that would be a change to that email that would, I think, satisfy a lot of, rather than saying you've got 7 days to do it, or however you,
Okay.
however
I
you
will
say
go
it
back and
now.
look
Same
at that.
spirit of the
But to
letter.
say,
Yeah.
say,
Sure.
you know, if we haven't heard
Yeah.
from you in 7 days,
Okay.
then we'll send them.
Definitely, I'll go back and relook at that email.
Because, again, I spoke to someone at the Jasmine Block Party I went to the other day, and one of them were actually out of the country, in a country that it's very hard to communicate in and out of. And they actually got a call from their daughter that got the letter at the house and called them, and it's like this big emergency.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a letter saying you need to get your mailbox painted.
Yeah.
And,
Well, again, I usually we wouldn't send a letter just for that, because it is small. We would reach out via email first, and hopefully a lot of
Oh,
times
no,
that
no.
communication.
that's
will-
what I'm
But the
hearing,
email
so I
was saying
just, I'm
7
talking about
years,
a
the
past
email was
issue from,
something saying
I'm not
7
sure whether it was a year, 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I've had
Oh.
two different people that said that they had a list of things to get fixed. They got them fixed, the inspector came out and then signed off on everything got fixed, and then said, oh, by the way, you need to get your sidewalk cleaned within 7 days. And, you know, that was like, man, I just did all this work, and I did the whole list, and and then they're
I
telling me.
wish you'd have told me that before,
Well,
yeah.
why did you wish you'd told me before? It's 7 days, it's like, and it was just, you know, it just,
That's frustrating.
That's frustrating,
I totally
yeah.
agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah.
And without knowing the property
But-
address, I can't tell you why that happened.
Yeah.
I would apologize to whoever,
Yeah.
went through that amount of work and then got an extra item.
Yeah.
We don't typically tack on anything new,
Yeah. Mhm.
so,
Wait, Susanna and I and Susan, we talk about that in our level of meetings. weeks. So, and it's important to understand too that this document that you're looking at is a policy and procedure for us internally. It's an operational policy and procedure. It's not a public document. So this can be tweaked, this can be modified as, we're constantly trying to achieve the best process.
Okay.
So that's what
For
we
me,
work towards.
the best letter, what you did with the letter, I think that's great. I think that most people should get that. Every once in a while, there's an exception that something's like, you need to get this fixed right away. But that would be it would have to be, to me, pretty obvious. And some of these things, I think, mulch needed in plant beds, I don't think that's gosh, the world's gonna fall in if somebody didn't have their mulch in plants within 10
I think you
days.
can categorize certain things.
That's all I asked, that's what
But
I
I
asked.
think there are certain things that should not go more than 14 days, for example, mowing your yard.
Yeah.
And
I actually think that more of your lawn needs to be done within the 2 days.
it's not gonna happen if you can't get a landscape.
No, but I'm just saying,
But-
as far as eyesores go.
Am I the only one that pressure washes their own sidewalk and mows their own yard?
I'm also,
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Just-
pretty much.
but I am
about a
very
year ago.
concerned about
Couldn't
scheduling
do
trash
anymore.
pickup. And 2 days is plenty of time. If somebody's got a bunch of junk out there that is all over their back pad there, we don't need to see it for 30 days.
Right.
It needs to be gone.
I think the key thing here is that we're hearing over and over is it's a communications thing.
Right.
And
Yes,
if,
it is.
the
And
resident.
the right communications,
And, yeah, and I think, but back from the resident side as well. I mean, it's very, when I was rerunning for the board, I got a letter,
You
and
deserved it, too.
it said, I deserved it. And it was very simple. It was just, okay, reach back out, communicate, let's.
Actually got an
let's
email
move.
first.
I did get an email. This is true. I never did get a letter. I got the email. And it was the kind of thing where, and I get there's times where people have problems, getting in touch and back and forth and that sort of thing. But I've sat through so many appeals hearings where we're sitting and we're going, where were you the last 7 months? And now that we sent you the finding letter, that we got through the 18 courtesy notices that we sent, now you're paying attention. And I guess that's my one concern. So, I like that it's being softened by, I just want to make sure that there still does need to be a process in place. Because the other fun part about this is that, like, for instance, I bet you that we didn't notice in a lot of the cases that the mailbox flag was removed on the first day that it was removed. So in other words, that mailbox flag might have been missing for 2 months prior to that, but it's just now the
Sure.
inspector
Just now
was
being
able to get
caught,
around and
yeah.
say, oh, yep, mailbox flag's gone. So that's my silly things. But overall, I think that this is, I've heard positive things from folks. I know, like, when the inspectors went through Artisan recently, there were some things a lot of people got, for mulch and stuff like that. And it was funny, they'd come out on the street and they'd say, yeah, you're right, we needed to mulch, silly stuff like that. So it's a lot less of the negative comments that I guess that I've been getting previously.
Steve, you were gonna say something.
It's important for us to have a documented process because we'll get phone calls that may be in complete contrast from what we're hearing today from you guys, where they'll say, the hair and spray signs are in the yard and they shouldn't be there. You need to have them removed, you need to go, the fullest extent. And we'll have people say, that's your job, that's what you're supposed to do. It's in the governing document. So it's important to have a process that we're all on board with, we're all working off of, and we can explain to them, yes, that is an important issue, and they have this much time to take care of it, and we are addressing it. Another one that we get a lot of, and this is just a conversation of a workshop from the previous board just a couple months ago, that's the blue recycling bins. People leave their recycling bins out, and it clearly says in Exhibit C that those open containers are not allowed to be stored outside. So we've had violation notices sent to residents on those, and we actually have a few that have not been addressed, and they're coming up for fining. So again, I think it's important for us to have a defined
So
process.
hide yours
on how we
behind
do
your
it.
bushes like I do.
No, geez.
Well, sometimes people will put
Go to his-
unapproved garbage within their recycling bin, and then
You can't
animals
see
get
it
into
from
it, and it's all over the neighborhood.
For where they can be. They have to
Yeah,
come on the
people
property.
put paper and then a wind comes up and it's like the
Right.
paper's all over the place.
Yeah,
So that
you
could
get
be-
that.
that could be
I've got a
pretty-
neighbor
Or
that
it
does
rains
that
a
a
lot,
lot.
then it just be a
Yeah,
soggy
yeah.
mess.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, Susanna, that you needed to address in here? Is there
No.
any questions from any board members regarding regarding this process that you have not addressed yet?
I think we're good.
Thank you for.
Everybody good?
Okay.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll
Oh,
move
that was my motion, sorry.
It's been a long year.
I motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Second.
I do have to say something.
Wait a second, wait a
6:23.
second. Let's go off camera first.
We move to adjourn.
Oh, if
Move
we
to
just move
adjourn.
to adjourn, we're
I have
done,
to turn
right?
it off.
So,
So
But it's
if you're
6:23.
adjourned, then
Okay, 6:23.
Yeah, what did he say?
6:23 PM. I can get a
Before 6 and
lidded
after 6?
recycling bin for $66.92.
Are we adjourned?
Let-
Yeah, we're
We are
adjourned.
I